Today, I'm here to talk about Sinners, and I have not stopped thinking about it since I saw it a couple days ago. I just felt like I was floating leaving the theater. I haven't quite had this incredible of a theater experience in a long time. I have been excited for this movie for a while. I love vampire movies. Twilight was kind of my first introduction to vampires, which is kind of a weird one to step into. I'd known all the tropes, obviously, and anyway, so I've always been a big vampire fan. So I knew I was going to like this no matter what. I think Ryan Coogler does great work. I love his Creed movie and Black Panther. I guess those are the only two I've seen, but they're both really good. And then I kept seeing these like amazing reviews, and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be really good. And I was worried that I had like talked it up in my head too much, because sometimes that happens where you like hear great things and then you go into the theater and you're like, that was good, but like people made it sound like it was amazing. Thank goodness this was not that way at all. This was incredible. I just, I feel like even making this video, I'm not even going to be able to cover everything I loved about it. And I'm sure I'll think of more stuff the more I think about the movie, because it's so dense, but not in a way that makes you feel stupid, if that makes sense. It feels dense out of a love and not a sense of like trying to feel like you're smarter than someone else. Because sometimes you'll read something or watch something and be like, I can see that there's a lot here and I don't quite understand everything. And because of that, I didn't have a good experience. But that was not the case with this movie. I feel like there was stuff I didn't understand, but I still had a great time. I think on rewatch, I will even appreciate it more. And I'm planning to go see it again if I have time. And I don't do that very often. I don't go see movies in the theater more than once, generally. I guess the last time I did that was with Furiosa, which I also loved. And even just from the beginning, I was just invested. I bought the characters, the setting. Immediately, I was in it and just like, okay, I see what we're doing here a little bit. I'm buying it. Let's go. If you're unfamiliar and you don't know a lot about Sinners, Sinners is a period vampire movie set in 1932 Mississippi. Michael B. Jordan plays a set of twins, so he's playing two characters here, and they are returning to their hometown to set up a juke joint for the local community that they grew up in. And most of the movie takes place over a day. There's a couple things that aren't, but like 95% of it is just over the course of 24 hours. I love when movies do that, because you can tell that they've like trimmed the fat for the movie and they know exactly what they want to do. Like it just feels so tightly paced, but it doesn't move so fast that you feel like you don't get to settle into the setting and the characters, because sometimes there's that too. So it's right in the middle and it feels just like perfectly paced. And the music, oh my gosh, I haven't been able to stop listening to it since I've seen the film. And I don't know enough about blues music to know what's happening or anything, but I know what touched me and was unique and very like fit the setting. It immediately sets the tone and gets you into the movie, and it really is a character in and of itself, because so much of the movie is about music, which I was a big surprise to me, honestly. I don't know how I didn't know that. Even like hearing reviews over the weekend, I'd heard that the music was really good, and I was like, that's cool. I love when music is really good, but it really is like such a huge part of the storytelling. I saw someone on Twitter say that they were like, it's a musical. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Not in the traditional sense, obviously, but the music really enhances the storytelling really well. And it just sounds amazing. Ludwig Göransson, I don't think I'm saying that correctly, but I'm very impressed with his ability to move genres. And like his soundtrack in Oppenheimer is really great, but it's so different from Sinners. Like, And that's great because they're very different movies and take place in different times and different settings, and the tones are different. But I can't wait to hear more of his stuff because this was just incredible. And there's a particular scene that I will talk about later in my more spoilery section. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And it is just incredible work. I did want to talk about the cast a little bit. It's more of an ensemble cast, even though Michael B. Jordan's kind of the lead. We have an ensemble of characters, and I love them all. Like, I feel like I could spend a ton of time just like talking about all of them and what make them interesting. They're all distinct and they all are played to perfection. Like, I just, the casting director, great work. And all the actors just really leaned into all these roles. And some of them I've never seen them in anything before, so maybe this is just how they are. But others I was like, you're like a totally different person. I wanted to talk about Miles Canton, who played Sammy, who honestly really is the lead almost in the movie. I don't know if that's kind of a spoiler, but it does. The beginning starts with him, and this was his first film, which is incredible. Not only is he acting, which he's great at, he's also singing and playing the guitar. Like, he's doing all this stuff that you would see like a seasoned actor doing and be impressed by at the level that he's doing it. But this is like his first foray into being in a film. Like, that's already a lot of pressure, and then he has to do all this stuff, and he does it so well. Like, I feel like you see all these movies that are like, oh, so and so is the best this. I can't wait for you to see how good they are at this thing. And then you see them do it and you're like, like, I feel like that happens in The Greatest Showman when the talking up, what's her name, who sings opera, and then she doesn't sing opera. That bugs me so bad. Anyway, in this case, he does so well. His voice is so great. And as far as I can tell, I'm not a guitar player myself. Well, I played a little bit. Anyway, he's doing a great job at that too. And he just had this really sweet, innocent energy that was necessary for his role. And he did such a great job. I cannot wait to see him in more stuff. And I hope he keeps doing acting and even just making music. If that's what he wants to do, I will listen. Like, because he's just so talented. He did such a good job. And also, of course, Michael B. Jordan was also really good. I think I've been hearing less about his performance because we kind of expect him to always be good. And playing twins sounds really hard, especially because they share so many scenes. There's like hardly any. They have some scenes apart, but most of the time, at least in the first half, they're like talking to each other, interacting with each other, but they still felt like different characters. And I think some of that is due to the writing, but like somebody was saying, like, I hope that some people grow up thinking that there are two Michael B. Jordans like I did with Parent Trap, but I hope kids are not seeing Sinners. So maybe that won't be a problem because this is for an older audience. I also loved all the women in this movie. Like, I feel like most movies are like, okay, we have one complex woman character. That's good. But in this one, we have a few. We have Annie, who I loved her character, and she's played by another person. I don't think I'll be able to say her name right. Wunmi Mosaku. Holy crap. She was so good. I loved her character, and I loved seeing her in love with Michael B. Jordan. I feel like we don't often get to see bigger ladies be in like relationships with handsome guys. I don't know. And as a woman who, is not small, it's really nice to see. And her character is just so cool, and like, she's the first one to kind of recognize what is going on, and you totally buy it because she's just very like in touch with that kind of folklorish side of things, and I love that. And I really like the villain too. Oh my gosh, Jack O'Connell was really, really interesting. I don't think I've seen him in anything up to this point, but I guess he's gonna be in the 28 Years Later movie, and People seem excited about that. I haven't seen any of those. I should. I've been meaning to. But they're hard to watch. And he was really great at playing the line of like intimidating and terrifying, but also coming across as like not too scary. I don't know. His introduction scene, oh my gosh, let's talk about that. Where he is being chased by these indigenous people, and like you can see that they've chased him into the sun basically because he has burns on him. Oh my gosh, I would watch a whole show about these like indigenous guys fighting vampires. Like that would be so cool. And it really sets up like his kind of manic energy almost, where he's like meeting these clan members. I think they are clan members if I remember correctly, and they're just like, oh hey. Also, just on like a visual level, this movie looks so good. I don't live anywhere close to a theater that plays like the film prints, but I did get to see this in IMAX and it still looked really, really good. I love the switches between like the full screen and, you know, the 9:16, I guess, or 16:9. And it felt very intentional. Like you could kind of always tell anytime that the aspect ratio would change that something was going to happen. And I loved that. I want to see it in IMAX again, but I don't know about time. But yeah, if you can see it in IMAX, I highly recommend it. But again, I think it's just worth seeing anyway. I didn't know this until I was researching, but I guess the reason that Mickey 17 and Sinners swapped release dates was to allow Sinners to have more time in post-production, since there was a scarcity of film stock labs for, you know, that they were producing. And which is funny because in my head, Mickey 17 and Sinners were my most anticipated movies of the year. Now they're not because I've seen them, but I thought it was funny that they swapped because I was like, well, I guess I'll get something while I'm waiting for Sinners. I don't know what to look forward to now. Now that those are gone. Probably Mission Impossible. I think that's my next thing. Anyway, I do think Sinners is a better movie. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't think it is. But I did like Mickey 17. It's flawed, but fun. But this is like so good. And I haven't really talked about the vampires at all, but I love that there's vampires in this movie. Like, it feels like it's kind of only tangentially related. Like, they don't show up really in any significant way until later in the movie, which is kind of fun. And not in like a we're trying to make it more intense Jaws sort of way, but just like that's not the focus of the story. It's kind of feels more like a sprinkling of the supernatural. It's not like there's other supernatural elements that are more important than the vampires, if that makes sense. And I'll talk about that later again because it's more of a spoiler. But I kind of love that because I feel like so many horror movies just make it all about the monster, and like the set dressing is the characters in their development, but it's the reverse here where the characters are first and foremost most important. And I feel like it's impressive that we're able to get to know so many of them so quickly. And I feel like because of that, when things start to go down and stuff starts happening, you really feel for these characters more than you would have in another movie where you're just kind of waiting for the action to happen. I did not feel that here. I was like not really missing that there weren't vampires until later, if that makes sense. Because some horror movies, you're just waiting for the monster to show up or for, you know, stuff to start going bad, and you're just kind of like, you know, twiddling your thumbs until that happens. But that was not at all the case here. And I just want to shout out Ryan Coogler again because I am so impressed with his ability to take all this stuff, all this folklore, all this music, and just like storytelling. And like, I feel like it's a really ambitious movie. It could feel a bit like they're biting off more than they can chew. But he just handles it all perfectly. The screenplay is so good. And it just looks so great. It's casted so well. It all comes together incredibly, and I just am so impressed. This is my favorite movie of his. I haven't seen the second Black Panther or his first film that I'm not remembering the name of, but I'm definitely thinking about going back and watching those after seeing this because I just am like, I can't stop thinking about it. It's just so incredible. And from the outset, you feel like this is like all the stuff that's happening feels believable. Like the very first scene kind of sets the tone off really well, and it's just like there's going to be folklore and music is a huge part of this, and it's a little scary. And so from the very beginning, he sets you off on the right foot, and it never lets up, but it doesn't feel exhausting, if that makes sense. Like it's anyway. It's so hard to talk about because it just like I feel like it's so good, and I can't really capture why it is that good, and there are smarter people than me who can explain better than me, but I can't not talk about it because it's just that good. And I have a few things that I've hinted at that are more on the spoilery side, so if you want to go in not hearing about the ending, I am going to talk about the ending. Skip to here, because if you are not convinced by now by all the reviews and how well it's doing, just go see it. Go. If it sounds interesting to you, I'll just go. And then come back and we'll chat, okay? Okay, on to the spoilery stuff. Firstly, I want to talk about that oner in the middle. I knew going in, because I saw it after the weekend, and so people had been talking about it. I knew that it was coming, but thankfully, the stuff that happens in it was not spoiled for me. So I was just blown away. Not necessarily by the oner itself, and like, I do like a good oner, but just how he was able, oh my gosh, this scene just made me sob. Like, the way he was able to get into how music really just is transcendent and like in time, and it just connects you to people. I love music, and I love seeing people like sing, and it's just such a communal thing. But I love him bringing all of these cultures and like times together. The second like the past stuff was really fun, but the second we saw like the guy with the guitar or whatever he had, I was like, oh my goodness, I just can't believe that. I just wouldn't think to go there, but how cool that that exists, and that scene is just so well executed. The music is amazing, all the dancing, and you know how all the different instruments and styles of music come together to create this just beautiful sound. I just was, and like just thinking about it, it's making me emotional. Again, I promise I'm not always crying when I watch movies. Oh my gosh. But this scene, it just really touched me, and I just, anyway, anytime something like that happens is so special, and it was fun because it was like a happy thing. I feel like sometimes when a movie touches me, it's because of a hard thing that I've gone through, but it was this celebration, and just like, it was so well done. And anyway, I loved it, and I cannot wait to watch that scene again and just to hear the beautiful music. And anyway, and on just like a technical level too, it's really impressive that all these people were coordinated enough that the camera was able to make the movements it needed to, and you know, they're doing these complicated dances, and they've, you know, are all in these incredible costumes, and it just felt so natural. Like, it didn't feel out of place. I mean, it was a little bit shocking, but in a way that just was like, no way they're doing that. There's no way that they're doing that. I loved that scene. And the rest of the movie is also really good, but like, it leading up to that one scene is just, the lead up is so good. Amazing, amazing. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the vampires and kind of how they worked. I loved that they couldn't come in unless invited. I did not know that was coming. I almost forget that that's a vampire thing because I feel like it doesn't come up very often. I love how it's a big part of the story and how, like, the second they get turned into a vampire, they're like, have to ask to come in, and that's kind of what starts them figuring out like what's going on. And I think that's just so clever, and then turning that into a big moment where Grace yells at them to come in, and it just becomes this cool big moment. Anyway, I love when movies use a supernatural element like that and create like a hard and fast rule and then use it to move the story along basically. And then they did that in a few ways here, which was really cool. And that scene where Annie starts to piece together things and you can see the wheels turning in her head as she's like asking questions, and like, I don't know, I love seeing that kind of thing in movies where characters are like trying to grapple with something that they're not sure what to make of it, and they're like just testing things and kind of seeing what's going on. I also like that the vampires are music lovers. I just have never thought that, like, oh yeah, vampires are gonna love music too. Like, why wouldn't they? I don't know. I just assume that they all have higher aspirations than us normal folk, but I love that they do a jig. I was like, when that happened, I was like, no way. We're doing this? Seriously? How fun. I would have been a little tempted to join them because they look like they were having a good time. I mean, other than like not being able to control what you do or whatever, it seems like not a bad gig. I also loved the very ending. It obviously did not end well for really anybody. It's a horror film, that's not unexpected. I loved getting to see Michael B. Jordan use that big gun against the Klan. I was like not sure when that would happen because I was like, he's shooting. I'd seen that shot from the trailer, where he's like facing the camera and shooting. I was like, that's during the day. Most of this is taking place at night. When is that gonna come up? And then it does, and you're like, oh, I see. Now that the vampire thing is done, he's gotta deal with the Klan. Part of that too is like they were always kind of doomed from the start. Like, even without the vampires kind of showing up, they were kind of on the run from the mob, it sounds like, and the Klan was after them. There was all this stuff stacked up against them basically. And I love that kind of big bombastic ending where he's like, I'm gonna fight them, and if I die, it's okay. And seeing Annie with her baby also made me cry. Oh my gosh, when he's kind of being pulled between the real and, kind of the afterlife, I guess. And she's just like, kind of talking to him, and it's just beautiful. And she's in this beautiful white gown, and anyway, just an incredible, incredible scene. And also, I love that this movie has a post-credit scene. It's like a really important post-credit scene. So many people in my showing walked out, and I was like, I had heard that there was a post-credit scene, and I like to sit through the credits usually anyway. So I was, just sitting there. We see the older Sammy. That was so fun. I loved it. We get to see him. Anyway, the post-credit scene is really good. And the mid-credit, there's kind of a post-credits and a mid-credits one. Anyway, stay through the credits. It's a good practice anyway. All in all, I did just love this movie, and I can't stop thinking about it, and I know I will be thinking about it for a long time. And I just would, if you haven't seen it and it sounds interesting to you at all, I highly recommend it. I can't wait to revisit it because I feel like there's so much more to it that I just kind of missed the first time. But I still had a great time. Like, I feel like that's a unique thing to have happen where you watch through a movie for the first time and you're like, that was amazing, but I don't feel like I got everything out of that I could have. And but it was still like a great time for the first time. And I'm usually kind of I'm usually kind of a one and done type person. Like, I'll watch a movie once and be like, okay, that's good. Because, there's so many great movies out there that I just don't have time to rewatch movies. A lot of the time, I'm like, I want to watch something new. But I feel like I need to see that again. Now that I've seen it, I'm not sure what my most anticipated movie for the next little while is. So I would love to know what you are looking forward to this year because I'm just not sure. I know there's stuff coming up, but I've been so excited for Sinners that like that's just been my focus for a while. Have you seen Sinners? What did you think of it? Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to kind of walk through these movies by talking with them, and I feel like I always learn something about myself. Not always just myself, but about the movie as I kind of talk through it. It's quite nice. So I appreciate anybody who watches these because they're honestly more for me. I hope you all get to have a movie experience as great as this one was for me, whether it's Sinners or something else. Um, I just, I love movies that make me love movies, and this was definitely one of those for me. So thank you for watching.